What's going on, y'all? I got some good news for everyone. Late Night Lake Show has picked up a new sponsor, and it's the NBA store. So all you got to do is use our affiliate link anytime you're going to shop the latest NBA merch, and it supports Late Night Lake Show. You get to go and get your Bulls gear, your Bucks gear, I don't care what fan you are, your Heat gear, and then you get to still support. Again, use the affiliate code anytime you're going to shop for NBA merch. We good? Awesome. Appreciate y'all. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to a new episode of the Late Night Lake Show podcast presented by Prize Picks. It is your host, Ricky. We got our friend of the show, the reigning champion friend of the show, Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy podcast, dropping in to kick it with us to talk all things Lakers NBA draft. Jonathan, how you doing today, my man?
Ricky, I am surviving. It is gloomy in California somehow. It's been gloomy this entire June. The Denver Nuggets just won the championship, the same Denver Nuggets that swept the Los Angeles Lakers. I had my second bout with COVID. I'm just trying to survive. We got a writer's strike out here in LA. The SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, might go on strike. It's mayhem out here, but the Lakers are heading into the draft and a very important offseason, so I'm excited to talk all about that. So the key word here is surviving, but we're good.
That's the truth over there, man. That someone said that like the LA area hasn't seen sunshine in a long time. Is that the truth? I thought this was the Sunshine State. What's going on, bro?
It's the Lakers, man. The Lakers affect the mood and the weather of Los Angeles, as they should. So
appreciate you always stopping by and kicking it with me, man. There's got to be some type of consolation for losing to the Denver Nuggets and them turning around and winning the NBA championship. Yes, the Heat picked up one more win than the Lakers did in the Western Conference Finals, but the result kind of looked the same, right? No matter what moves that the team made, the Nuggets and more specifically Nikola Jokic, there was no answer for him. Jamal Murray, there was no answer for him. And better team clearly won and took home the title. So we'll give the Nuggets 3 claps. But Jay, do you take any consolation in that the Lakers lost to the NBA champs?
Not really. I take consolation in the fact that we made it to the Western Conference Finals. Oh, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so here's my consolation. I think the Denver Nuggets have showed us once again what important continuity looks like, how important size at the wing position and the forward position looks like, and how you still need bigs to win in the NBA. I think that's the biggest thing that I hope Rob Pelinka, the Lakers GM, remembers. I feel like we've lost our way since the 2019-20 championships in terms of we used to be that big-ass team that used to punk people, right? And we used to force other guys to match up with us. And then LeBron James breaking down, Anthony Davis breaking down. Like, it's amazing that we got this far this season with like the tremendous trade deadline that we had. But obviously we all knew, I mean, how many times we got on a podcast together talking about which buyout big men should the Lakers sign back in March, and they never ended up signing anybody. I knew that shit was going to bite us in the ass at some point. And I specifically knew it was going to be with Nikola Jokic. And if the Denver Nuggets hadn't made it to Western Conference Finals, I knew it would be somebody like, I don't know, Joel Embiid or Al Horford and Robert Williams, some big like that. I felt like we can't put the onus simply on Anthony Davis to do everything. So I think hopefully the consolation prize out of the Denver Nuggets series is to look back at the winning formula that we had back in 2019-20. Literally, KCP is on that team and we had KCP, right? So it all falls back on having big guards, but also big forwards and making sure that you have enough competent bigs outside of Anthony Davis to help muck things up down low. So,
and well, shout out KCP, 2-time world champ, went from the butt of Lakers fans' jokes, but in reality, he was that manna from heaven, right? That brought in LeBron James and a 2020 championship, and now KCP gets a parade, right? So maybe he can wear a Lakers jersey underneath or something, wear the 2020 championship ring to say that he's celebrating, times 2 for all the lost moments that was the pandemic. So great. So, as everyone knows, Jonathan is the founder and creator, the architect of the Laker Legacy podcast. And he's been doing amazing work ever since the Lakers got booted, and probably a little bit before then, on NBA draft prospects that could be there when the Lakers make their selection. And with the NBA draft just around the corner, it will be next week, be in about 9 days. We are excited to get his POV on some of the names that are on his radar for the Lakers coming up here. So before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you get your hashtag good content. Make sure that you are tuned in with the Prize Picks apps. If you don't have it already, download it today. It's the number one place to make your sports wagers. Yes, the NBA season is over, but you still got the WNBA, you still got the NHL hockey playoffs, and you still got baseball, and football is right around the corner, baby. So make sure you use our promo code LNLS for 100% match deposit up to $100. You need the link. It's in the description down below. So without further ado, let's do it, Jonathan. If folks have been rocking with Late Night Lake Show over the years, obviously the NBA draft has to come up every year. But if you have been up with the kind of content that I promote, it is the possible worst time of year for me. This, like, I cannot over explain how much the NBA draft does little to anything for me. And it's mostly because it is a lot of arguing and a lot of projections of two different sports. In my opinion, college ball and NBA ball are just two different levels of playing basketball. And what that ends up being is a lot of people are put on pedestals. A lot of people are slandered, saying that they are going to be the greatest thing in the world or not the greatest thing in the world. And they end up not living up to those expectations, or they surpass those expectations. Nikola Jokic, the two-time, almost three-time MVP, the finals MVP this year, was the second-round draft pick that was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. So it's just true. Goes to show that the scouting departments, they make big misses. So when we drill this down to podcast form, right, we are doing our best summation of the information that we have. But at the end of the day, these kids are entering into a league with full grown ass adults. So there will always be an adjustment period. Jay, I say this often, that I don't grade young NBA players until they've had a full season under their belt, facing people who have multiple child support payments to make. It's just a different level of responsibility that they have to go up and face every night. So, but you dive into the weeds. You know you guys, you know what you like, you know what you don't like. I guess let's start here, right? Let's start with the Lakers' needs. Let's, whiteboard it out. What would you say the Lakers' biggest needs are heading into this offseason?
I think the Lakers always need shooters, especially when you're taking into account Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They need shooting. You need to put the ball in the basket. It's like basketball 101. And then everybody already knows the Lakers also need wings. They need bigger forwards. They did a better job this year addressing some of those needs with guys like Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura, but I think they need that in-between guy that slots between Max Christie at 6'5", 6'6", and then slots right below Jared Vanderbilt, because I think everybody would agree Vanderbilt and Rui are more low post defenders. Even though we've seen Jared Vanderbilt obviously switch on to guards, we saw the limitations of that when he had to try and go up against, Steph Curry, Jamal Murray, et cetera, et cetera. So it would be nice to have somebody who's as pesky as a Dennis Schroeder or a Max Christie, but at the 6'7", 6'8" spot, who could legitimately be a wing. So I guess those would be the top two, although you could also argue, this is kind of a muddled answer, but you could also argue the Lakers could just get a new big man of the future, right? Like, who is that guy to slot next to Anthony Davis or take over for Anthony Davis? I know big men are no longer in vogue, but again, given what I said about the Denver Nuggets and what it takes to win a championship, at some point you're going to need them. And especially for Anthony Davis, you're going to need a big man to help him stem the tide of an 82-game regular season. So I would put it in that order: shooting, wings, and then a big man. So we need everything, Ricky, is the real answer.
They talk about, what are the Lakers going to do at point guard? Obviously, they have some assets already insto with Austin Reeves. Now, his contract situation is going to be an interesting point, but if everything is going to go how it's being reported, the Lakers are just going to bite any bullet that is thrown their way in regard to Austin. You're just starting to hear about Roy potentially testing the market a little bit more because they understand that the Lakers are going to be penny pinching and possibly a little bit more to get to keep the team together. So, why not drive up the price and seeing if you can collect a bigger bag somewhere? And I guess that's the same for Austin's people as well. I'm sure they are very eager for him to cash in on a big payday because he's earned it. They've both earned it. So with that, notwithstanding, the thought of a big man of the future, it just gets me all tingly inside, Jay. You know how much I love my big man, right? And I think the only thing that I would love more than a new, fresh big man is a big man that can help Anthony Davis slide into his more natural position. So this episode is not about where AD should play, 4 or 5. All I'm saying is if you have another versatile big man that can share the floor with another big, then you're going to see AD probably slide down into a 4 position. So I'm all about, trying to check the box of getting our big boy for today and going forward. So there's a lot of names. Lots of names, obviously, in NBA drafts that get thrown around. But there's also the reality in it. The Lakers are the number 17 pick, right? So guys like Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, just tell them they have a great career wherever they go. Obviously, San Antonio is going to end up with Victor, but how else that shakes out, they will not be there for when the Lakers pick. 17's right outside the lottery, though, Jay. And so, you got to watch 16 players come and go. And I know you have some names that you wanted to start talking about first of players that are right on that borderline of that would be great for the Lakers, but they may not be there at 17.
Yeah. So, and also with regards to the big men in this draft, I'm on the same page as you. I would love to get a versatile big man. Unfortunately, this draft doesn't have those guys. There's not a lot of those guys in this year's draft. And one of the prospects that I'm going to talk about who's on the cusp of maybe the lottery, but at this point, he's rising so much that he's probably not going to be at the Lakers at number 17 is Derek Lively from Duke, 7-foot center, 7'7" wingspan. He called himself a fusion of Willie Cauley-Stein and Anthony Davis and Hakeem Olajuwon. I was like, that is a wide range, my friend. But I guess he gave us a floor and he gave us a ceiling. So good on you, Derek
Yeah,
Lively.
no kidding. He gave you the basement and then gave you the ceiling and then gave you heaven. So,
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, he is kind of like Willie Cauley-Stein. He's an elite defender in the paint, extremely athletic and long. I mean, 7'7" wingspan. I think Rudy Gobert has a 7'9" wingspan. It's just insane. But yeah, he has pretty good playmaking vision out of the post, makes nice reads. Obviously, you're not looking for your center to do that, but it's just good to know he's not a dum-dum out there. I think what's made him rise up draft boards outside of his extreme defense, because he's an elite defender in the paint, is the fact that he has a translatable shooting form and he has good touch, which he's showcased in recent workouts. He is a clutch client, so that's obviously another important factor. And actually in high school, before he got to Duke, he took threes more regularly and knocked them down more regularly. And I believe coming out of high school, he was a 5-star recruit. He was at times the number 1 high school recruit coming into Duke. So this guy has a lot of pedigree. So given everything I've said, he's NBA ready at this point to already be a sort of, elite shot blocker, a guy who will just clean up. He's not a guy that has post moves. He's more of a, pick and roll roller. He'll clean up on the boards. He's a rim runner. But really you're getting him for his elite defense. Think Tyson Chandler, think Mitchell Robinson. But again, I think the thing that's intriguing a lot of scouts right now is the fact that he can sort of shoot the ball. He hit like 14 threes in a row in his workout, So if you can start to get a little bit of some Miles Turner spacing ability in there in a Tyson Chandler type body, that's crazy. So I say all that to say, unfortunately, he's probably going to be gone by 17, but he's probably the best big man. Yeah. Do you want me to go through my other list of guys who probably won't be there, but if they slip, we'll
run through them.
Okay, so there's Derek Lively from Duke, 7-footer, 7'7" wingspan. There's also Cason Wallace out of Kentucky, 6'4" guard. So I know Lakers fans are like, 6'4", not again, 6'5".
That's what I have in my notes, bro. I said, like the production, love the defense, hate the height. 6'4"
So-
in 2023, me no say.
I totally understand, but this draft actually has, and you know me too, I've been like, God damn it, Rob Pelinka, your aversion to anybody above 6'5". I hate this. I hate this. I used to
Right.
defend you, and now, but actually, this draft, because of how strong the combo guard crop has been, has turned me into, I hate to say it, turned me into like Rob Pelinka. I'm starting to I'm starting to be infatuated with all these guards. And maybe it's a little bit of me starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel with regards to LeBron James kind of
Right.
being out and starting to think about, well, then who's going to be our next like primary ball handler? Now, Cason Wallace out of Kentucky, I don't think he's necessarily that, but I describe him as a pesky, strong defender in the mold of like a Marcus Smart, Pat Bev on defense.
All right.
He averaged like 2 steals in college, and he has a very sturdy and physical frame. So that's where you kind of get the Marcus Smart. But then on offense, he's just a very solid, stable, and reliable point guard who can shoot from 3, takes very smart shots. He can play make. He averaged like 4 assists. So my comp for Cason Wallace would be think Marcus Smart plus Mike Conley fusion. Marcus Smart defensively, Mike Conley offensively, and a lot of people give him the Drew Holiday comp, which is a pretty lofty comp, but you know, like it's a two-way point guard who won't do anything wrong and can do a little bit of everything. I like to say Marcus Smart because he's like elite defensively, and then I like to bring up Mike Conley with regards to offensively, just a great floor general who can shoot from the outside, shoot from the mid-range, but is not too flashy with it. You know, he's not going to break his man off the dribble and like yam it on somebody like Ja Morant, right? So there's Cason Wallace. I think he's probably going to go in the 14 to 16 range, but it's it's possible that he slips to the Lakers. So keep him in mind. And then the last prospect who's probably not going to be there anymore, unfortunately, is Bilal Coulibaly of Metz 92 from France. He is Wembanyama's teammate. He is 6'6" with a 7'3" wingspan, which is ridiculous.
Freaky.
Freaky indeed. He's only 18 years old, one of the youngest prospects in the draft. I believe their team is currently playing in the finals of whatever league they play in France, the LNB Pro A League. They're in the finals, and he's an 18-year-old with a pretty prominent role on that team. I think he had like a stellar 16-point game to help the Mets move on to the finals. So I think he's gaining a lot of buzz because he's playing right now, and scouts are seeing him play in like high leverage situations. He was a prospect that I thought for sure was going to be there for the Lakers at 17, all the way down to the later first round. But I think he's been gaining so much hype from this recent playoff play, and obviously being Wembanyama's teammate, that he's starting to be mocked in the lottery. People are saying the Utah Jazz might take him, the OKC Thunder might take him, but he's just a very fluid moving wing who's slithery and crafty in the paint. He can pass and play make a little. He's also pretty athletic. Defensively, it's crazy that an 18-year-old can be this way, but defensively, he already looks like he has the set fundamentals down to be like a hounding on-ball defender. He moves his feet well, stays in front of his man, fights through screens, stands his ground. And oh yeah, it helps to have a 7'3" wingspan. So think about what you've seen from Max Christie, but then extend Max Christie's arms out by 3 inches on every side, right? So Bilal Coulibaly is that type of, 3-and-D wing at his base, but then you can also see, just because he's 18 years old, where his ceiling could be. Because I think the one thing, and this goes for a lot of wings, the one thing that will kind of determine where his ceiling's at is his three-point shot, which he does have a fluid three-point shot. I think people say that there's a little bit of a slow release to it, but if he can really get that three-point shot down and become more consistent, sky's the limit for him. I kind of see shades of Andrew Wiggins and a little bit of Scotty Barnes in him, because he can kind of do a little bit of everything. But again, the determining factor in how high he goes or how good of a prospect he becomes will come down to that shot. But at his base, that's a really, really good defender who can yam it on people and looks kind of fluid playing on the floor. So that's Bilal Coulibaly, Cason Wallace, Derek Lively. They probably won't be there at the Lakers at number 17, but if they're there, I would be very happy to draft those guys.
Yep. No, love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, cool. So then that was our appetizer. right? That's just getting into it. Out of these guys that you mentioned, right? I already talked about Casey Wallace and the height, right? Derek, I did not like his numbers, right? 5.5 and 5.5 and 20 minutes per game. A little low for me, a little low, but at the same time, right? College ball and expectations and what your role is could be drastically different than what the NBA asks of you. So won't put too much stock there. But what we will do is take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna get into the main course. Jonathan's got a few names on here, and I got a few ideas for these few names that we'll dive into. So, Late Night Lake Show. We'll be right back.
The Late Night Lake Show podcast is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best legal way to play daily fantasy player props in states like California, New York, Texas, and more. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. The best part is you can mix players from different sports. You could take the over on LeBron combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy because it's just you versus the projected numbers. Just use our promo code LNLS, and any deposit you make can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So go support the brand and go win you some money. It's the best of both worlds. Again, use our promo code LNLS.
All right. Jay, we talked about this a little bit in the pregame show, and I think I'm finally ready to say it on camera.
What?
I never believed in Mo Bamba. From the first 9 minutes of his Lakers debut, I did not understand the height to where he stood on the court to why are smaller people bodying you in the paint. I didn't understand it. If he's back with the Lakers, I guess I could pray that, Darvin can utilize him and turn him into more of a mean guy that cares about making body contact and dunking on people, because that's what God put him on this earth to do. But I don't know, man. We were talking about some bigs that the Lakers could draft. There's a few more in our list coming up. But before we get into that, Mo Bamba and his contract and situation with the Lakers. If I just asked, where do you see him at the start of next season? Is it on the Lakers bench or somewhere else? What would you say?
I see him somewhere else. And if he's on the Lakers bench somehow, it's just a placeholder for whoever they trade him for.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as that. I agree with you. I think obviously what stands out with Mo Bamba is like, oh God, he has a 7-foot. Is it 7'9" or 7'10" wingspan? It's something ridiculous like that.
Right.
But again, if he doesn't utilize that on the inside where you really need him, I'm not sure how valuable a center he is. I'd almost rather have a beefier center who can stand his ground because Mo Bamba also can't really guard the perimeter. So I agree with you. I was intrigued by his height and his length and the fact that he could space, but functionally on the Lakers. And this is kind of why the Orlando Magic soured on him too, so you have to take that into account. I felt like the Lakers were just trying to see if they could strike gold with like a very, very third world countryman's version of Miles Turner. And it's just not working out. And I will say, so to Mo Bamba's credit, he did have injuries and stuff. I will say, and we talked about this offline, but I'm not sure how much to pin on Mo Bamba and how much to pin on Darvin Ham. So maybe there's a little bit of benefit of doubt that you give Mo Bamba just because Darvin Ham never got to a point in this season where he was comfortable utilizing bigs next to Anthony Davis. So maybe they give him a little bit more wait and see approach ramp up time. But for me, Mo Bamba at the end of the day is just a placeholder tradable contract.
Yeah, fair. Totally fair. And with that being said, let's dive into our current players that Jonathan believes could and should be around for when the Lakers are up at number 17. I'm actually going to jump down a little bit on this list, Jay, if you don't mind, too, since we're talking about bigs, right? Our FC Barcelona professional basketball player who is only 18 years old but registers as a 7-foot, 250-pound giant. James,
Yes,
am I saying this right? James Nnaji. He is honestly a specimen. So what do you like about James? How do you see that he can, fit with this Lakers roster?
So I've heard James Nnaji or James Nnaji probably works too.
I like
But
Nnaji.
yes,
Nnaji
he
makes
is.
sense.
He is from FC Barcelona. He's 18 years old, but I mean, if you look at him, you're like, this guy's lying. You're a liar. You're not 18 with these muscles and this.
Hey, paperwork gets a little funny over there,
I know. So, I mean, the first thing that stands out to you is just like this dude has got an NBA ready man's body. He is built like an ox. He is athletic, strong. He's 6'10", 7 foot, but he has a 7'5" wingspan. Again, 18 years old, doesn't turn 19 till mid-August. He is just super athletic, super strong. He's built like a rock. He moves and shuffles his feet on the perimeter, very explosive off the floor as a vertical threat. If I were a ball handling guard trying to snake the pick and roll or take it into the paint, I would be scared for my life seeing this man stretch his wingspan and defend me, because he's just a scary looking menace on the defensive end. He doesn't have a jump shot. He has no real touch or post moves, but I don't think on a Lakers team with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, you're necessarily looking for that. Although obviously mucking the paint up for LeBron James and Anthony Davis is a problem. I do think James Nnaji is the perfect sort of 82 game big off the bench who you don't want Anthony Davis to wear down. Anthony Davis is getting beat up. Let's put another strong body out there. I think James Nnaji is that perfect type of guy. But at the end of the day, he is a straight rim running, vertical threat, cleanup garbage man type. People have probably seen him working out with Serge Ibaka, which is kind of funny because before I saw that video, I kind of compared him to he looks like a prime Serge Ibaka without the 3-point shot or the jump shot. He's that well built. And if, we talked about Derek Lively at the top, right? If you were to parallel Derek Lively to Tyson Chandler defensively, I would compare James Nnaji to Dwight Howard defensively,
Okay.
So I feel like he moves his feet a little bit better on the perimeter, can contain pick and rolls better. And is still that crazy, explosive help defender that won't be able to be moved. So I really like James Nnaji. If the Lakers take him at 17, I would be totally fine with that. Just know that he's very raw. And he's probably going to be, I don't want to say this, but you might see some Kwame Brown in him, offensively, if you throw him a bad pass and he fumbles it and stuff. But in terms of being a ready-made NBA defender who can maybe, cause a guy like Jokic problems, I think he could be that right off the bat. And then hopefully he becomes a better he has more offensive feel down the line. But that's James Nnaji.
I mean, Jay, Lakers picked up a championship with JaVale McGee.
That's true.
As a starter, and nobody's saying that his post game is refined or fined or even started to cook, right? So, and who was the backup? Dwight Howard, a rim running, punishing big. So if we're trying to put some pieces back into place here, reconstructing some of those 2020 vibes, definitely think James could serve a purpose on the roster. So, all right, moving on. I'm gonna jump back up to the top because I'm interested about this guy. I have some rumblings, and we might have to enter him into the Ricky's Magic 8-ball for potential draft pick predictions that I'll drop later this week. But Bryce Sensabaugh. Am I saying any of these guys' names right?
I think you are.
Right.
That's right.
Cool. All right. So Bryce, obviously, is a guy that's got a lot of attention on him. I also feel like he's another riser as far as his draft stock. There's a pause in there somewhere. But regardless, talk to me about Bryce. What do you like about him? Because I got a couple of notes in there that I want to dive into.
So Bryce is 6'6", with a 7'2" wingspan, 19 years old, out of Ohio State. He's a guard wing. But here's the kicker. He's 235 pounds.
Yeah, he is. That's a big boy right there.
That's the big boy. And the first thing that stands out when you see Bryce is he's big, he's thick with 2 C's at the end, but he's agile and crafty. But he's definitely got that Kyle Lowry bottom to him, not as cheeky as Kyle. I feel weird talking about this dude in this respect.
I love it.
But that is the first thing that will stand out to you. And then you watch his game tape and you're like, oh shit, this guy's not like a Draymond Green power forward. He's taking guys off the dribble and pulling up from mid-range easy. Like, it's amazing to see what he can do in that body frame. Because if you just see him on the court, you're like, oh, that's like a Draymond Green type. Nah, dude, this dude is like DeMar DeRozan / Devin Booker in the mid-range, and he's killing you from the mid-range, hitting pull-up mid-range J's, hitting three-point shots. He averaged 16 points, 48% from the field, 40% from three, hitting 1.8 a game. He has got a beautiful stroke. That's why I bring up the Devin Booker, the DeMar DeRozan of it all. But the fact that he's doing it in this very sturdily built frame is very interesting. And, you know, we got a little bit of glimpse of this from like David Roddy of the Memphis Grizzlies when we played them in the first round, right? Because David Roddy's like a football player, and you're like, what is this dude doing?
What are you doing out here? Are you lost?
Yeah, and he's like shooting threes, right? So Bryce Sensabaugh is that type of 3-level scoring guard / wing who's 235 pounds and can punish you at pretty much every level, right? But mostly he'll do it on the perimeter. If you want to post him up against smaller guys, easy buckets, you know, for Bryce Sensabaugh. I have a comp for him that I think you will especially like, because it involves a former Laker that we both loved a lot. But I compare Bryce Sensabaugh to this dude is THT. If THT was an elite shooter in the mid-range and three-point land and hit every single jump shot that he took. Yep. So that's Bryce Sensabaugh. Now, the problem with Bryce, and I would love to have Bryce because he's such a unique prospect. The problem with him is he did have a knee injury during his junior year in high school that he had multiple surgeries on. And then I don't know if it was the same injury, but he did miss some of the postseason during March Madness because of another knee injury. So I think the reason why he's sliding down draft boards is because of these knee injury concerns. So it's really going to be up to team's medical department to really suss that out and see whether or not these things are going to be recurring, because you don't want to have, you know, Alonzo Ball situation. You don't want to have a Zion Williamson situation, because a guy this big doing the things he's doing as an agile guy, you know, crossing people up and pulling up from mid-range, you know, you don't want this guy to break down. So that's the biggest concern. And then outside of that, in terms of his game, there are some concerns with his defense and maybe conditioning, but I think at his size, 6'6", 7'2", I think he can grow to be a more competent defender. But really, it boils down to just the knee injury concerns. Outside of that, this dude is like a 3-level scorer in, you know, Draymond Green's body.
I love it. And I think to not be taken lightly is the physical adjustment to playing in the NBA, and not just the wear and tear portion of it, but these trainers, your job now is for 82 games of basketball. That little baby fat, right? That 235, that's going to come down some. Rest assured, that's going to come down some if he goes to a serious NBA franchise that cares about, you know, his eating habits and if he can stay healthy, and if he is spending half of his paychecks on porn stars with unrealistic implants in. Oh, sorry, need to refocus. I really like Bryce for two different points. If he's there, right, this is where we dive into the 8-ball part. First and foremost, it's a Big Ten boy. He's a Big Ten boy. I'll give you a notch. I'll give you another point for being a Big Ten boy, only because the Lakers general manager, Rob Pelinka, is a Big Ten boy and clearly has no problem taking other players within that conference that aren't on that are not Michigan Wolverines. We do have a Wolverine on the list that we will talk about too. But I think that the connection, we're just understanding, you know, the kind of teams he plays in college, the level of competition, having good historical knowledge of these head coaches at the Ohio States and the rest of these Big Ten schools. I feel like Rob feels like he has a better pulse on these Midwest college players. So that and Ohio State is still near and dear to one LeBron James in his heart. Yes, Bryce did not go to Ohio State, but you better believe that LeBron was still watching and following Ohio State basketball. And if he likes Bryce, and if he sees that he has potential to really make some contributions this season, right? I feel like that's going to be the other big consideration with this is LeBron's clearly not interested in any prospect that comes in and is going to sit on the bench for a year and a half, right? His time is ticking. And so if he thinks that Bryce can help him out on the court, I think him being from playing for Ohio State definitely could help if he's still around at 17.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. And I think the role that Bryce would play on the Lakers would sort of be that heat-seeking scorer off the bench, like Cam Thomas, but in like a 6'6" body. He just go out there and get some buckets, for the team. And, the Lakers did need a guy who could create for themselves, especially in the Denver Nuggets playoffs when other dudes were falling off besides Austin Reeves, right? And, Bryce is the type of guy who can sort of get to his spots because he does have the frame, he does have the footwork, he has like the handles to just get whatever mid-range shot he wants to get. And like you mentioned, you can already see the mold of player he can become once he gets even more right physically, because the frame is there. It's just chiseling it up a little bit, but you can't teach like offensive feel like that, So
right. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so that's our first name in the Magic Rob Pelinka draft prediction 8-ball. So for the reasons we talked about, we think Bryce has a chance if he's around. But let's talk about Jett. Let's talk about Jett Howard and what he brings to the table as a basketball player. And then I'll, go on my little rant on how it is inevitable that a former teammate of Rob Pelinka, his offspring, is a Laker. So what say you about Jett?
Yeah, so Jett Howard coming out of Michigan. Rob Pelinka went to Michigan with the Fab Five. If you haven't put 2 and 2 together, he is Juwan Howard's son, Rob Pelinka's teammate. So Jett Howard is a 6'8" shooting guard. And I say shooting guard because before coming into Michigan, he was actually 6'5". And so he experienced a growth spurt. And I think the growth spurt I think that lends to a lot of the deficiencies and weaknesses that people have pinpointed in Jett Howard, in the fact that he's not like a down the hill sort of aggressive paint attacker. When you see him finish, you're like, oh, this dude's kind of weak AF. He doesn't have a finishing package. But I think a lot of that is because this dude used to be 6'5" and is just getting comfortable in his new 6'8" body. But the benefits of being a 6'5" shooting guard who's now 6'8" is he's a very good perimeter scorer. So kind of similar to Bryce Sensabaugh in the fact that really good 3-point shooter, really good from the mid-range. He's got some handles and nice footwork in the mid-range to get to his spots. He has deep NBA range and he has an effortless release. He's a very offensively skilled and gifted player. Averaged 14 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds was the knock on him, because as a 6'8" player, you shouldn't only be getting 2.8 rebounds. And so I think he's probably new to this height, right? But a lot of the negative terms you'll hear around Jett would probably be along the lines of he's too soft, he's physically weak, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I mean, yeah, he's a small dude who's all of a sudden tall. I think with NBA training and regimen, you can hope that he bulks himself up, right? But he shot 37% from 3, hitting 2.7 a game. That's almost 3 threes a game. So, this guy can hit insane off the dribble pull-up J's. He can come off screens with his legs flailing everywhere and just fire it off. He has a very smooth and aesthetically pleasing game to watch. And you do get shades, kind of like with Bryce Sensabaugh. You do get some shades of like a Devin Booker and Jamal Murray in the mid-range and perimeter when you see him play. And I think a lot of people will misconstrue Jett Howard as purely being a shooter, but I don't think he's just a shooter, because he does have to work on his strength and being able to, drive it into the paint and do a little bit more outside of the perimeter. But he does have some nifty handles and footwork. And yeah, I just think he's lethal from the perimeter outwards. And he's a good pull-up shooter, 38% from pull-up shots. He has a really nice floater as well. But outside of just, the shooting aspect of things, I think he can be a really good secondary playmaker and creator in the pick and roll. And I think that's what separates guys out from being, say, like a Malik Beasley, who can't really do anything else but just chuck it up. And, who's a secondary primary creator, like Malik. A better shooting Derek White, right? Who can handle the ball a little bit. I think Jett Howard's biggest weakness is the defensive end, though I feel like he does try on the defensive end. He averaged like 0.7 blocks. So he's trying out there with his new height. I think it's all about just, getting his body more ready for the NBA, which you can say for a lot of these guys. And so I don't want to I don't want to undersell this, but Jett Howard is not an explosive athlete. So if you want to knock him for something, he's not like athletically explosive. He's not going to yam it on people. He's not going to get crazy weak side blocks, but he now has the length. I think he does have the effort on the defensive end. And I think the last thing I want to note for him is he had an ankle injury this season that really hampered him during the second half of the season. And I think that contributed to him being very poor on defense and getting blown by, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, at his floor, he's a more versatile ball handling, like Kyle Korver type. At his ceiling, you're looking at, I don't know, a shorter Michael Porter Jr., on the perimeter. And Michael Porter Jr. is what, 6'10", this guy's 6'8", but a lot of the same things you see Michael Porter Jr. doing. And let's say Jett Howard improves defensively, or, his ankle's right and all that stuff. I also could see him becoming maybe in a more specialized role, being like the next less athletic Cam Johnson, from the Phoenix Suns / Brooklyn Nets. Because I think Cam Johnson coming out of college, I don't think he was necessarily pegged as a defender either. So that's sort of those are my compilation of shades of type players for Jett Howard, Juwan Howard's son.
Last thing I want to add to that before we get into the last name I believe you have on your list. Last season, before the Lakers hired Darvin Ham, the Lakers canvassed inside the league and outside the league for potential new head coaches. You'll remember that Juwan Howard was a name that the Lakers talked to. Conversations were had and end up, looked like Juwan was not interested in leaving Michigan, especially with his son right there. So I just find that relationship very interesting, right? The lines of communication are open between the Howard household and the Lakers front office. To me, this feels like one of those situations where it'll be like, hey, if he's there at 17, we're going to take him. And I can see that being, a Rob Juwan conversation behind closed doors that actually comes to fruition. So another name, putting into the Magic 8 Ball, and we'll figure it out when we get closer to that date if they could show up. So I'm a big believer in this Jett Howard tea leaves that we're serving here. So funny enough, I did a quick search on any other ties between Jett and the Lakers, and your tweets popped up in some random article. Don't you love when that happens? It's like,
oh, I didn't even know that. I gotta check that out.
I don't get notifications about this whatsoever. So, all good. Look at you, just famous. Writer's strike, but they say Twitter is free domain. So any of your good points, it will be propagated and used elsewhere without your knowledge.
That's for sure.
All right. Last name that I think we had on here was Maxwell Lewis. And I did not go to an Ivy League school. I did not. I think they call Illinois State University the Harvard of the Midwest, but that is done in all sarcasm. But what can you tell me about Maxwell and what he was able to do at Pepperdine last year?
Yeah, so Maxwell Lewis, 6'7", 7-foot wingspan out of Pepperdine, which is just in Malibu. I believe the Bus brothers were at, just because it's so close, I think they were at countless Pepperdine games. So if you're looking for tea leaves, I mean, they had a very good look at Maxwell Lewis last year.
I'll write that down.
Versatile offensive scorer, very fluid and smooth game in the mid-range, averaged 17 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. So he can kind of do a little bit of everything as the primary creator / scorer. He's pretty lanky. His movements and finishes in the lane kind of look like a shorter Ingram at times. It kind of looks awkward, but he gets to his spots when he wants to. Again, 6'7", 7-foot wingspan. He's a really good three-point shooter, even though his overall average was just 35%, but he's a really good catch and shoot three-point shooter, which is the most important part when you're trying to see whether you can project out his skill in the NBA. I think he shot like 39% or maybe even higher catch and shoot threes wise. He's just a really solid offensive player who knows how to get to his spots in the mid-range. And then if you want to play him off ball, I think he's a good three-point shooter as well to be able to do that during his first few years in the NBA. His weakness is surprisingly is defense, even though he does have a 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, although I believe he improved in that respect as the season progressed. And again, maybe this is just like a body thing as well, as just getting his body right and having the right sort of scheme and coaching around defense, because he does have the measurables to be a potential good defender. So I think he needs to work on his defense. He needs to work on his offensive consistency, because I believe he sputtered out towards the latter end of the year. But I think that's just because a lot of the offensive load was put on him. He might be able to actually benefit from a more specialized role his first few years in the NBA, at which point, if you're around a LeBron James and you are relied upon to just be the secondary third creator and all you have to do is attack closeouts and finish, I think Maxwell Lewis could do a very good job of being that type of player.
Right.
So my only thing with Maxwell Lewis is when I first watched him play. So this is my worst case scenario for Maxwell Lewis. He kind of reminded me of Stanley Johnson. And Stanley Johnson is a good role player, but he's not the lottery prospect that
Stan the man. That's a name. That's a name that keeps coming back up. And Stan's got all the defensive capabilities, right? But he still keeps bouncing around the league. I actually thought you said Wesley Johnson for a second. That's why.
There are some Wesley Johnson. Yeah. So those would be his worst case scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And worst case being, I'm not saying Stanley Johnson's not a good player, because I would love to have him at the end of our bench. He's just not a number 17 first round pick, and definitely not a number 7 first round pick that he was slated out to be. So that would be, I guess, Maxwell Lewis's worst case. I don't think he'll hit it, just because it seems like he's so offensively versatile and gifted. But if we're looking at ceilings, I was having a hard time trying to find shades of comps for him, but kind of reminds me of Bradley Beal a little bit when he's got everything clicking. He's got some shake and some nifty moves to him in the mid-range. Also, a little bit of Buddy Hield, a more athletic Buddy Hield in terms of how he likes to get to his spots and how smooth his shooting form looks. Except I think he's a more aggressive driver to the basket than Buddy Hield. But those are just the types of player in terms of movements and getting to his spots that he reminded me of in terms of high ceilings. But I think in the next level, I think his best role would probably be a 3-and-D type of player who can really space the floor. And if his defense gets better, then you're looking at, I know people like to say Trey Murphy for him, but I was like, one, he's not as long as Trey Murphy. Yeah. He's not as good a defender as Trey Murphy, at least not yet. And so I think there's some a few levels he has to hit before he becomes that Trey Murphy type player. But right now he's an offensively gifted player who you can sort of kind of hope for more on the defensive end with, because he has the measurables. So the ceiling could be high if he hits, but right now, I think you want to mold him into a Trey Murphy type player.
Pepperdine's in Malibu? That must be nice.
Yes, it is in Malibu. And here's where I'll correct your pronunciation. Pepperdine.
Pepperdine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell I've never been to Malibu before.
You need to go to Malibu, man. It's beautiful out there. But yeah,
I feel like every California city has a college.
Pretty much.
That's crazy. Okay. All right. Pepperdine. Well, Maxwell, hopefully you and your pretty wings can find a home here in the NBA draft. I do, I think he might probably be there after the Lakers pick. Yeah. I'd say he could probably be a late first round draft pick. But yeah, I like what I see in the limited videos that I've watched of him. But I'm actually surprised, Jay, that a name didn't show up on your list, brother. And this one that I had to stack into the Magic 8 Ball. And maybe,
who is it?
Well, his name's right behind me technically, but I'm not talking about this one, brother. I'm talking about Kobe Bufkin.
Let's talk about Kobe Bufkin.
Our other Michigan boy, right? And I think for me, what gets me so excited is I could kind of see these comps pretty quickly. Now, this man's playoff performance has put a horrible taste in Warriors fans' mouth, but another former Wolverine,
yes,
Jordan Poole, I get some Kobe Bufkin vibes, right? I get the vibes of somebody that is not afraid of the moment. Matter of fact, seeks it out. I kind of like a little bit of that irrational confidence. And like we said about a few of these guys, those heat-seeking missiles where it's like, your job is to put the ball in the basket, right? We haven't had one of those at this age in a very long time that we would look to do that. So I especially love his efficiency around the rim, brother.
Yeah.
Like, you are shooting 71% as a finisher at the, bro. If we have both seen plenty of jagged layups in Laker uniforms over the years, or just brick 3-pointers, right? So it's like both positions, right? You're missing layups, you're missing threes. I'm gonna go jump off my balcony now. Thank you for the entertainment, Lakers. And I just really think that Kobe could now be that type of player, kind of like Austin is, where he gets a little mixy. He gets a little saucy, right? He can get the crowd involved on one play. And then on top of that, the 3-point shooting, 35.5% 3-point shooter, right? We like that. We'll take that, right? And then on top of that, 1.3 steals a game. That, and you are a freaky finisher at the rim, is going to lead to some beautiful highlights, not just in Vegas Summer League, but during the regular season in front of the Laker faithful. And that is how you build another fan favorite that follows in the path of your Austin Reeves. So tell me about Kobe, and tell me why also he wasn't on your list, because I'm interested in that as well.
So Kobe, 6'5" combo guard as well, kind of like Jordan Poole out of Michigan, kind of like Jordan Poole. The reason why Kobe Bufkin wasn't on my list, and maybe he should have been at the top when we were talking about guys who may not be there for the Lakers, it's mainly because I don't think he's going to be there for the Lakers. And Kobe Bufkin, it's taken me a while to sort of act surprisingly get sold on him. My only issue with Kobe is we've only seen him do this year. Like, obviously it's stellar that the last year he like made such big improvements. I think it's more of a problem of sample size and like, can you do this more than 1 year? And we kind of saw this amazing spurt the second half and everything like that. That's my only real issue. And you're right. I think Kobe Bufkin gets saucy with it. He's got the moves, 70% at the rim. He has improved his 3-point shot. He did carry that Michigan team towards the latter end of the season, especially when I believe Jett Howard was out for a couple of those games. So he really took on the offensive load and looked very competent doing so. And then the other thing that you didn't mention necessarily outside Neal's numbers is he's a very good defender. He's like, an Avery Bradley type, but who's longer and taller. He's that sort of pest who will fight through screens and just be a defensive menace in the likes of Dennis Schroeder, but not be as small as Dennis Schroeder, which helps. My comp for him, and I was having a hard time trying to find a comp for him, but I think at his floor, he's maybe like a DeAnthony Melton type of two-way combo guard sort of player.
Okay. Yeah.
But at his ceiling, I finally nailed this down for myself. I could see DeJounte Murray type vibes from him, where he plays both ends. He's pretty athletic. Both guys are 6'5". They're both wiry, can finish in the lane, can play make a little bit. That's sort of DeJounte Murray. If he can become a knockdown 3-point shooter, that would be amazing. My only other concern with him is he's slight in frame right now, and I don't know if there is going to be an adjustment period when he gets to the NBA. I don't think he's going to be shooting 70% at the rim in the NBA, but obviously you can probably project out a little bit once he gets stronger. But that would be my only real concern, just how frail he is and wiry he is right now. But yes, in terms of, the offensive skill that he's shown and just his tenacity on both ends, I think you like the mentality that Kobe Bufkin has, and obviously he has to wear that name around his entire life. So I'm sure there's some sort of like, I got to live up to this sort of deal. But yeah, I like Kobe Bufkin. I'm just not sure if he's going to be at the Lakers spot at number 17. And I guess the only thing too is like, I think there's going to be another adjustment period for him in the NBA. I would not be surprised if in Summer League we see him look a little bit Max Christie-ish before he finds himself. But again, that's not too much of a problem. I think he's less ready than a guy like Cason Wallace, but I think the ceiling may be higher, right? If he reaches that type of ceiling. Before we close though, there's one other prospect that I want to talk about that I kind of throwing a curveball at you. And it's a prospect that every Lakers side and every Lakers fan has talked about. I'm sure you've heard his name, Jordan Hawkins out of UConn. Everybody has the Lakers picking Jordan Hawkins.
Everybody. Yep.
6'5". They won a national championship, best movement shooter in the draft, yada, yada. So I like Jordan Hawkins, but to me, he's a small 6'5", and he's very slight in frame as well. And even though I like the JJ Redick with some Avery Bradley in him on the defensive end fusion, at number 17, I feel like he's still like a pretty one-dimensional sort of player. He can't really create for others. He can't really create off the dribble for himself. If you give him space, he can yam it on people. He's pretty athletic, but to me, I would prefer someone more dynamic and versatile. So that's why I sort of am kind of cool on Jordan Hawkins. He to me seems a little bit too much like the type of guy that LeBron James would want, but I don't necessarily want LeBron James to be the GM of this team. Like if you remember when he was on the Miami Heat, he's like, let's get Shabazz Napier. I'm not saying he's Shabazz Napier because I think he is one of the best shooters in this class, but if you're trying to think a little bit ahead, forward thinking, I think you want somebody who can do a little bit more and isn't sort of just a one-trick pony. And not saying that Jordan Hawkins is that, but in comparison to some of the other prospects that we talked about, I think their ceilings are higher because they can do a little bit more of everything than a Jordan Hawkins would. And again, I just don't like the 6'5", but he's kind of small 6'5" frame. So I'll just leave that out there because I know people are going to be like, what about Jordan Hawkins? Because Jordan Hawkins, everybody's talking about Jordan Hawkins. So there is Jordan Hawkins, everybody. And then lastly, the one last name I'll bring up, I know I'm lying here, is keep a lookout for Colby Jones out of Xavier. He's 6'6". Okay. He's 21 years old. He reminds me of like a Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, Josh Hart, like a do-it-all utility man and floor general. He's the type of guy that I think the Lakers tend to gravitate towards because
adults.
They are ready-made win now prospects who can do a little bit of everything. He is kind of like that Austin Reeves, can do a little bit of everything. He's a really good defender. He already has an NBA ready frame, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 1.6 steals, 51% from the field, 38% from three. Literally can do a little bit of everything, right? I think you can just plug and play him into a LeBron James and Anthony Davis led team. Not a name that will necessarily excite you, but could be the exact type of guy who can play in a playoff game as soon as just in the same vein as like an Austin Reeves or like a Christian Braun. They're just like smart dudes who won't get lost in the thick of things. So just Colby Jones, keep a lookout for him. But yeah, that would be it for the prospects I want to throw out.
Colby Jones would have to, between him and Max, one of them got to change their hair. They way too similar. One of them, we can't have two mops on the Lakers with the curly fro. So somebody gonna have to figure that out. But no, I do like Kobe as well. And your point about Lakers gravitate to those types of players. He's a 3-year starter, right? At Xavier, he put in the work, and his workload never fell off. His production continued to thrive as a scorer each and every year he was there. But I think Kobe, who's on your list, I just can't read and
you're good
over it. I think that'll be a good one. He just from a look, he reminds me a little bit of LiAngelo Ball. Like just looking at him,
kind of,
in the face, he looks like LiAngelo, who just had a baby with Miss Nikki baby. So congratulations to LiAngelo Ball in the Ball family. So
LiAngelo Ball shout out. I did not expect that.
you didn't expect that one, right? Yeah, I had to work that one in there, but that was 17. That is what we're looking at. Those are our options. Now, if I had to rank our crystal ball options, I think I'm probably putting Bryce in there. I'm probably putting Jett in there. I'm putting Kobe in there. And you know what? Colby is going to. Colby Jones is going to from Xavier, just for the reasons that you talked about. He's kind of got that this front office Lakers and coaching staff, what they look for. So big names to come up. Lakers also have the number 47 pick in the draft, second round. Jonathan, just throw a name out there that you would be over the moon if the Lakers could grab.
Julian Phillips, if he slips to that point. I don't know if he will, but Julian Phillips, he's I think a 6'7" wing. I mean, if you can get a wing in that spot, go for it. Another guy is Mohamed Guy. He's like here's a big man who's kind of raw, but has the good measurables and can has some flashes of spacing potential. This is a really deep draft. So honestly, a lot of the guys who are being talked about in the later first round, they could slip to the second round. I don't know if they'll slip all the way to 47 because a lot of guys withdrew. So it's a little bit scarcer in that spot. But I mean, there could be some guys who, one name that's really fun. Well, check out Ricky Council's game tape. He has a funny name too. Ricky Council. It's like so diplomatic.
What a name.
I know.
I might change mine for a couple of days like that.
There you go. The Council of Ricky, baby. Ricky Council 4. He is very, very athletic and explosive. So if you like Derrick Jones Jr. and his highlight dunk package, kind of like Ricky Council. So I wouldn't mind a high flyer like that. So run the floor.
We go.
Showtime Lakers type stuff.
LetRickyDunk.com.
Exactly.
Our next Shannon Brown. Let Ricky dunk. So love it, brother. All right, we both are working men out here on the clock, so I'm gonna let you go. Appreciate you as always for sliding by and chopping it up with me. You have officially extended your friend of the show lead, so we will send you a t-shirt or a plaque or a mug that says "World's Greatest Friend of the Show." So Jay, I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Thank you for having me. Follow us at Lakers Legacy Pod, at Lakers Legacy Pod on Twitter. Follow our podcast. You can follow me and my writing journey at JHUN88 and hope the writer's strike ends. But other than that,
pay the writers.
Yeah, seriously, pay the writers. And let's go Lakers. It's draft time. It's the off season. It's it should be fun. It's going to be a very, very important off season because this is the off season that the CBA has changed. And a lot of teams are going to be trying to maneuver themselves for the future and make sure they're not paying a boatload of money for no reason. So
about to be a bunch of business decisions out there across the league. So be ready for that ride. So again, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. As always, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on the podcast platform. We're on our way quickly to 1,000 subs here on YouTube. So tell a friend to tell a friend to tell their baby mama to subscribe to Late Night Lake Show. So appreciate you again, Jay. We will see you guys on the timeline. We out.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ricky. See ya.